Hello, everyone. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about number charts, or the Nashville Number System, as it's come to be known. You know, quite a few years ago, as a young man, I had the opportunity to sit down and visit a little bit with Ray Walker. If those of you who are not familiar with Ray, he was one of the Jordanaires, which famous vocal quartet in Nashville, sang behind all of Elvis's stuff, in the '50s, and became a very popular vocal group. One of his fellow Jordanaires, a guy by the name of Gordon Stoker, was actually considered the progenitor of the Nashville Number System. And as he told me, he said, so backing up, to give you a little bit of insight into how the session system worked, especially back then, is, of course, everybody was union at that time, and union sessions, they allowed for three-hour sessions per day. And of course, the sessions were costing these record labels quite a hefty sum of money, and as a result, the record labels, they wanted to see results, so typically they would expect to get 3 songs out of one of those 3-hour sessions. So you're going to be doing a song per hour. Now, that being said, most of these musicians back at that time did not read music, did not have formal education in music, so they couldn't write the parts out even if they had the time. And if they had the opportunity to write out parts, it takes a considerable amount of time to write those parts out. And let's say you did notate out all of your parts and have it all ready to go. You get in there, you start tracking the song, you get halfway through the song, and the artist says, "Whoa, wait a minute. I think D is too high for me. Can we drop this down to the key of C?" Well, at that point, you're back to the drawing board. You're going to have to sit down and rewrite every bit of that music. So it was obvious that they needed a faster, easier way to notate those chord changes, and so everybody could be on the same page and be productive and be efficient about it. And this became, according to Ray, it became a real issue for them, trying to work out their parts on the fly behind Elvis in those early days in '56, '57, when Elvis went over to RCA and started tracking there at the RCA studios in Nashville with Chet Atkins producing. And so he said that Gordon came up with the idea of using numbers. So the idea with the number system is you simply are accounting for the relationship between the chords in a song. So, for example, let's say you're in the key of D. That's always going to be your 1 chord. And then the G would be your 4 chord. The A would be the 5 chord. B flat or B minor would be your 6 minor, and so on and so forth. So that's in a nutshell, the idea behind it. And then when they write it out, you usually put the numbers in groups of 4, and each number will represent one measure. And say you're in a 4/4 time signature, that's going to be 4 beats. So each one of those numbers will represent 4 beats. And then you can get a little bit further down the rabbit hole. Let's say you have a split bar where the first 2 beats are a D, and then the second 2 beats are a G. So that would be a 1 and a 4. So you put those together and just underline them, and that indicates that they are that is a split bar. But going even further, let's say that D is only the first beat, and the other 3 beats of that measure are the 4 chord. So in that instance, you would write the 1, write the 4, underline them. You could put a dot over the 1 and 3 dots over the 4, and that way it's 1 beat for the 1 chord and 3 beats for that 4 chord, and so on and so forth from there. So, and then moving on, of course, that started catching on pretty quickly with the Nashville A-Team session players, and moving into the early '60s, as I understand it, when Charlie McCoy moved to Nashville from Florida, he did have a formal music education, and he took that a little bit further, made it a little bit more standardized, and elaborated on what Gordon had already done. So it's an excellent way. No matter what key you're in, the relationship between those chords is not going to change. for me at this point in my life, and for quite a number of years now, I don't think in chords. I don't think, oh, this is the G, this is D, we're coming up on a C chord or whatever. I don't think about that. I think 1, 4, 5, 6 minor, whatever, like that. So really it's kind of irrelevant to me what the actual chord is. I know what key I'm in, so I know the relationship between the key and those chords like that. And also this is very helpful when you're playing live, because obviously if I'm on a really loud stage, start playing a song that I've never heard before, look over and the guitar player, if he hollers G, well, I might hear that, I might not. Or I might think he said B or D or C. So, it's kind of difficult a lot of times to communicate on stage, and that makes it a lot easier. If you're using the number system like that, they can look over at me as long as I know what key we're in, and, they can just 1, 4, 5, whatever. So I do want to tell a quick little story about my first experience with the number charts. I was a teenager. I had only done a couple of sessions at that point, and I had become friends with a fellow in Oklahoma City, actually Del City, who owned a music store and really nice recording studio up there called Del City Music, a fellow by the name of Bob Wood. And Bob had worked with Bob Wills, and he was friends with everybody in the music business, and it helped a lot of artists from Oklahoma get their start, including people like Reba and Garth and Toby. And he was just a great fellow and was always really good to me. Well, he called me one time to come up and do a session. I'll never forget, it was right before Thanksgiving, the week of Thanksgiving. Actually, I think it was the Monday before or something like that. So I went up there to do the session, and I walked in, and there were several very impressive people, musicians in the room at the session. And of course, I was extremely intimidated, and as soon as I walked in, the first thing Bob asked me, he said, "You know how to read number charts, right?" And of course, I wasn't going to tell him I didn't, because I didn't want to get sent home. I didn't want to lose the gig, so I said, "Oh, of course, sure I do." And I had a bit of an idea at that point, or at least I was guessing at, the only thing that made sense to me with the numbers. And of course, back then we didn't have Google, so I couldn't get on the internet and look it up and learn anything about it. But anyhow, I walked in. I get into a vocal booth right there off the control room. I put the chart on the stand in front of me, and I'm very quickly perusing this chart. I'm trying to figure out, what I'm looking at. So I'm leaned over, looking really closely, and okay, it's in the key of D. It's 4/4 time signature. So anyway, it's like, okay, so this 1, that must be D. So I went ahead on like that until, I was continually looking at it. And as I was looking at the chart, I kept getting closer and closer and closer to it, just intently staring. And I had my headphones on, and I heard the talkback mic in the control room click on, and Bob said, "Chris, is everything okay?" And I look up from the chart, and right there on the other side of the window was Bob, his engineer, and 2 or 3 other guys, musicians, very experienced musicians, were standing there looking at me. And of course, I played it up. So, "Oh yeah, it's light's kind of dim in here," and I was just making sure I was seeing the chart right. And fortunately, I guessed right, and I was able to kind of follow along, and took several passes at it. We were able to get some usable material out of it. Everybody was happy. And looking back on it, I'm sure all of those guys knew exactly what was going on, exactly what I was doing, and bless their heart, they didn't call me out for it. But anyway, that was my first experience with that. And so I really encourage you, if you play music, if you get out, if you're working with bands, you're working with other people, you're recording, you're thinking about recording, what have you, whether you read music or not, I highly, highly recommend that you sit down and study the number system a little bit. And it will help you immensely. It pays dividends down the road, and it'll make it a lot easier for you, I think, in the long run. I know I've found it to be quite a help. Like I said, that's my whole cognition, the whole way that I think in music is in those numbers. So, and those relationships between those chords. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. If you got any questions, comments, critiques, what have you, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll keep doing some more videos. If you have a question or an idea for a video, please let me know, and hopefully I can answer your question or get something out that it pertains to it and it can share with you. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, y'all take it easy.